Hey everybody, it's Armchair. This video is probably going to get more real in tone compared to other videos that I had made in the last couple of days. In particular, I'm going to be addressing my own personal history with the Mormon Church. As you know, most of you know if you're already subscribed to my channel, I am affiliated with the Mormon Church, and I have no choice to be because I am a student at BYU. But before we go any further, yes, I know it is June, it is Pride Month, and if any of you, have any doubts of my standings on the LGBTQIA plus community, here is the pride flag, but I made it awesome, as well as the bisexual skeleton riding a motorcycle badge of approval. You all matter. I want to be a good neighbor to all of you. It's not just morally right, but it's also something I find God would want me to do. Now, yes, I am navigating my own way through my own faith. I am trying to pick up my Bible again and just find my own truth in it. I am following a few pastors on Instagram, and their insights are very, very interesting, and I know their hearts are in a good place. I want to learn how to be able to share that eternal love that I feel like I might not have been sharing as a child. That's not to say that I wasn't trying to be a good neighbor as a child. I mean, that's what I was taught to be when I was a kid growing up in the Mormon faith. But anyways, being Mormon, I was given the full exposure to everything that the church had to offer. And that was the only context that I was given to look at life. At the time, I was pretty happy with it. I was going to especially for youth, church camp that happened every summer, which is like a week-long thing. It's still a thing. It's under a different name called For the Strength of Youth. It's, the same church camp, but everyone is welcome to come. And you learn scripture, you learn things about self-reliance, and you just learn more about what the church is about and teachings in the Book of Mormon. And I eventually went to BYU, which I'm still attending BYU. I've had some good experiences as of recently. I am heavily involved in the geography department, which I switched to that instead of becoming a mechanical engineer. Again, best switch I'd ever made. I feel like I'm in a better place than I was when I tried to get into mechanical engineering. There's a lot less of a mental load when trying to deal with difficult problems, like with calculus. That's something I just simply cannot comprehend. If you want to hear a little bit more about that journey, I have the I Failed video, which I'll probably link in the description. But I've been able to do a lot of really cool things, which I'll list here. I was able to collaborate with Rewilding Europe, monitoring bison populations. Well, I wasn't on the field, but I was looking at satellite imagery, evaluating what places would be the best candidates, best candidate environments to go and study bison that loiter across the Rhodope Mountains in Bulgaria. The chapter was really wonderful to work with. That was a class, and the professor that taught that, he has connections with the grandfather founders of GIS, and he lorded everything he knew about flying drones to me. And that's how I was able to get my Part 107 license, so now I can fly drones commercially. Honestly, I'm in, I think, a pretty good place where, employers would be interested in me. At least I hope. So, in general, things are going pretty alright right now. So, that means my experience at BYU has been nothing but fruitful, right? No! Absolutely not! This video is about how my life fell apart. So, buckle up, because, yeah, this is gonna be pretty real. And to put that into perspective, these experiences that I've had a couple of years ago, the imposter syndrome has just gotten to me so much that I've gone into full-on panic attacks and mental shutdowns where I just wasn't present in classes for like fucking weeks. I wasn't able to make any progress, which is not a great place to be in when you're so close to graduating college, which I keep reminding myself this. I just need one more full year to be able to graduate, but the imposter syndrome just gets really difficult to deal with. So where does that come from? Someone asked in another video that I had made where I explained how I came out to one of my Mormon professors as non-believing, that my shelf broke. It's an event that happens where the foundation of something that you believe in falls apart because of a certain factor. It doesn't have to be a single thing, it could be multiple things. For me it was multiple things, but what really got it going for me was one event. And this was something on top of other things that were already kind of happening. And these were things that I kind of had difficulty coping with. I was already having mindsets that were kind of contradictory to what the church was teaching me. In particular, I guess this is not for nothing, but teachings about people in the LGBTQIA plus community. It had to do with the joy that these people would be able to feel in the mortal life and where they might be going in the afterlife. And sure, they would be able to do the works that God invites them to do, but the joy that they're able to feel is limited compared to that of other people that are straight. That didn't really sit right with me. I had learned all of these lessons very seriously when I was a teen, when I went to these early morning classes called seminary classes that were specifically taught by the church. I would go, wake up at like 5:45, I would go to the church in the early morning, and I would be taught these lessons by the seminary teachers, and given these lessons from the Book of Mormon, and basically the standards of the church. The stances of the church on LGBTQ plus community were, we don't have a stance, but they also are not able to receive the unfiltered joy that other people do. So they don't have a stance, but they have a stance. So I just had to wrap my head around that, I guess. But that didn't really matter to me as much. What I really wanted to hang on to was a scripture that I was taught from the Book of Mormon that said, and I'm going to paraphrase this, something that said in 2 Nephi 26:33, and what that basically says is, whether you're black, white, bond, free, male, female, you remember the heathen, and all are alike unto God, both Jew and Gentile. That was the foundation of my testimony, that all people were alike unto God, and no matter what I was told, no matter what the correct answer on the quiz was on people of same-sex attraction, which was what it was called, you know, everyone will be able to feel the unfiltered joy if they accept the invitation of Jesus Christ. Not only that, but they're also able to accept the invitation to do good works and just be a good person. So long as I would continue to get those good feelings that I was in a good place where I had the right state of mind with everything, then I would be fine. And then I realized that those feelings, that burning in my chest where I felt that joy, which I knew was coming from God when I did something good, well, it was something that I normally felt. It wasn't really unique. So I was like, well, am I getting anything from God right now? Is he listening to me right now? I was sure of it regardless, because I was taught that sometimes these things take time. Personal revelation, it's not immediate. Sometimes it can take days, months, weeks. I said that in the wrong order. I'm rambling. You can tell. Sometimes it can take years, decades. Sometimes you get personal revelation after you die, and you're not meant to have that answer right now. That also didn't really sit well with me. In particular, the part where you just weren't able to get an answer, especially, if you need an answer that is essential to living the best way that you can, and you have to wait until after you die to get that answer, then something is fundamentally flawed there. But I says to myself, whatever. I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to make the best of my experience at BYU. So, I'm at BYU, I'm as devout of a member as ever, and I was very excited to continue my religious education and take religious courses, which is a requirement if you go to BYU. And then I take, in, I think, the winter semester of 2022, Foundations of the Restoration. And this is where everything fell apart. This class was made a mandatory course to take for everyone that goes to BYU, because it's there that you learn about the controversial histories on the church, such as the shenanigans of Joseph Smith. All I can really say is marrying 30 people and Adobe Acrobat PDF file reader. Read between the lines, because my God, I'm sure you understand. Also, the histories of Brigham Young, his controversial sayings on and opinions on race, in particular interracial marriage, where, if people were to interracially marry, it's off with their heads. So that's a very nice way to look at it. There's also the Mountain Meadows Massacre, which happened during the Mormon Church's immigration to the West from Missouri to Utah as they were running away from the army. Terrible thing that happened where, there's a lot of historical and Native American whitewashing that's kind of happened. I'm not gonna go too deep into that, but if you're curious, look up Mountain Meadows Massacre and learn more for yourself. These are hard-hitting, and for a lot of people it made them uncomfortable, myself included, but I was like, I don't know, I felt kind of indifferent on it, so I figured I'd just go home and pray about it, and, or maybe the next time class happened, or I would send an email to my professor just asking about this, see if he had a good answer for it. But I got my answer because someone else said the same thing that a lot of people were thinking. As I was packing up my backpack, someone went up to the professor, and they obviously felt really conflicted after learning about, I think it was the massacre. And they said, I don't feel good about this at all. This just seems like really messed up history. And I figured that, this is a good time for the professor to console the student that is having these negative feelings. And the professor just says, yeah, that's messed up, isn't it? How are you supposed to make anyone feel better about that? I don't blame him for for not really having anything uplifting to say at, regarding something like that. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I really don't feel good about the church anymore. And the more I looked into everything, the worse it got. And, one of the things that actually happened that year when I learned that, my own testimony was falling apart, there was the whole tax evasion SEC scandal where the Mormon Church was posing itself, instead of a religion, it posed itself as a charity in Australia so that it could be tax exempt, because religions, as of 2014, I think were no longer tax exempt. There was like a change in their constitution or something. So they wanted to evade taxes and collect more from the tithing donations of the members of the church that resided in Oz. There's also some loopholes that they exploited in Canada, and it had something to do with, so long as Canadian students were attending BYU would be getting the funding that they need. They got like $1 billion of money from Canada, but the church can obviously control where those assets go. So, yeah, and that's basically caused the net worth of the church to balloon in size. Now it's like, I don't know how close it is to $400 billion. It's a hefty amount of money that they say that they're saving for a rainy day, but the rainy day is now, so why are you only spending less than 0.5% in fucking charity? It just doesn't add up. All of this just made my entire worldview and the entire foundation of my life that I was so sure of since I was a kid fall apart. And I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life anymore. That's where the whole imposter syndrome, kind of started happening for me, because I don't want to be a part of a lie. I just fell into this bout of stress, and I just feeling that I'm only able to talk to just a few people about this. I opened up to my family eventually, but I didn't even tell them everything that I felt until relatively recently. And it sucks that we can't really do anything about this, because the religion credits that I take at BYU, they're non-transferable. I can't just go to another university. It's probably different now, but at the time, if I had to transfer anywhere, I would have to almost start from scratch. That wasn't an option. And it didn't help that BYU was the cheapest option for us because we actively paid tithing to the church's members. So that's what it's like being a BYU student experiencing imposter syndrome because they don't want to be a part of the church anymore. And that's what the breaking of the shelf is like for whoever it was that asked that question so long ago. And I've come to terms with it. I've went past the 5 stages of grief already, although it still does affect me. The panic attacks, the fight, flight, freeze moment from recently, just because... But the bulk of the world falling apart and having to rebuild my foundation of what life means to me, I'm past that, I think. But my foundation is built, but that doesn't mean that I'm not building up from what I've already learned. I'm not giving up on it. I mean, I told my fiance, my self-preservation is at an all-time high. So, I mean, there's a lot that I want to experience in life, things that I've already seen and felt, and things that I know that I will feel and see that I really want to experience. To throw that all away is just unfathomable. If things were to go differently, which I wish did happen, and one of the ways that it could have happened was giving myself other options other than BYU, specifically because I could feel comfortable being a Mormon there. At this point, looking back on, everything that I've learned about the church, I would have done. But there's no way that I would have ever been able to just freely learn about anything that I could have wanted about the church, because I don't know. But, hindsight is 2020. We'll see what happens. Again, I am very, very close to finishing my education at BYU, and all I can say is it's going to be very cathartic once I walk across that podium with my degree, and I can know full well that I'll be able to openly toss away my Book of Mormon and just live the way that I want to. Times are tough, but I will eventually get through it. If you feel like you're dealing with something similar to anything that I've talked about here, I'll just say something that I said to one of my friends the other day. Even if the nights are long and the dark holds the seemingly endless unknown, the morning light eventually, but always, comes. You will get there. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again very soon.